everyone. Welcome to the 5 Beer Plan. I'm Brian, and this is the ongoing saga of an everyman's ale trail. In this episode, I pitch the yeast and ferment the latest homebrew project, get some packaging advice from my expert at Buckeye Brewcraft, sail into the sunset with the guys from Chubby Mermaid, and review a classic dopplebock. But before we get this party started, here is this episode's burning question. What is your favorite dopplebock? I checked Untapped, and my favorite is Oculation from Adroit Theory Brewing out of Purcellville, Virginia. The first word I said was unbelievable. A slightly hazy, caramel-colored pour. Strong malty nose with a hint of banana. There were sweet, bready flavors with subtle chocolate on the tongue. This is what a dopplebock should taste like. In this segment of Homebrew Hijinks, it's time to pitch the yeast and kick off fermentation on the Creek Valley Cream Ale. While the wort was cooling, I sanitized the remaining items I would need for the next steps. This included the glass carboy and airlock components, a 1-cup Pyrex measure, a long metal spoon, and of course, the yeast packet and kitchen shears. It might seem like overkill, but it is really important to make sure that everything is sanitized at this point. Using a sanitized instant read thermometer, I continually checked the temperature of the wort. Once it reached 70 degrees Fahrenheit, I used the 1-cup measure and dipped out 2/3 cup of the cooled wort. I set this aside as I would need to use this to measure the original gravity a bit later. I carefully poured the remainder of the wort into my sanitized glass carboy. I got about 1 1/4 gallons worth of wort. I took the metal spoon and carefully, yet vigorously, stirred the wort for a minute or two to add some oxygen. This would help the yeast do its thing. I would use a Cellar Science Cali yeast for this beer. It is delicate enough to allow the grain and hops to shine through. I cut open the packet and pitched the yeast. I closed up the carboy and installed the airlock. Before I began the cleanup, I measured the original gravity and found it to be 1043, which was, again, 10 points lower than expected, but also not unexpected since my pre-boil gravity had also been a bit low. After a few hours, the yeast started to go to work. I wrapped it in a towel to keep the light from causing any problems along the way. It was about 3 full days before the airlock and the activity ceased and the yeast finally finished up their work. Now it was time for the next step, secondary fermentation. Next episode, I rack the secondary and add a special treat. Homebrewing can be overwhelming, especially if you are just starting out. Every month, I set aside a few minutes to talk to my go-to expert, David Young, owner of Buckeye Brewcraft in Columbus, Ohio, and ask him some common questions that homebrewers have. So another thing I found as I'm going along here in my brewing experience, bottle day can be a real drag, even if it's only a dozen bottles. I was brewing and bottling this week, and it's a pain in the butt to attach the hose to the bottle filler because everything's so tight fit, and and your PBW makes everything squeaky clean, and so you're slipping and sliding. When does it make sense to move from bottling to kegging? And what kind of equipment is out there for the home brewer?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and it's the age-old question, and yet another rabbit hole to dive into. Let's answer the big question first. Should I keg or should I bottle? The answer is yes. You need to do, again, what your space allows. I think that there's a really common misconception in homebrewing that going from bottling to kegging is a, quote, upgrade, and that all the problems and all the messiness that I have with bottling goes away. And the answer to that is a resounding, if you have been told that, you have been lied to. It is not true. The phrase that we use in the store all the time is when you move from bottling to kegging, you don't resolve problems, you trade problems. Now, that's not meant to be scary in a way that says, hey, don't do X or Y. It's just meant to say, like, this is not a solution to a problem. It's a potential new source of a problem. Now, I will tell you again, kind of right off the rip here, I have kegged beer from day one. I also bottle beer, but I have kegged beer from day one. Would I go back and do it differently? No, absolutely not. So I think that, again, I'll have to say, like, I was afforded the opportunity by a good friend that I had that got out of home brewing that essentially was like, here's all this stuff, learn to do it and make, have some fun with it. And we, horse traded on some stuff. And I ended up with like 6 corny kegs and a freezer and just like all the stuff that I need. So of course I'm going to keg the beer. It was available to me on day one.
Sure.
But that may not be the path for everybody. There is a lot to be said for bottling beer. And the biggest one of those, without question, is the shareability of your beer and the overall storability of your beer. I mentioned in a talk that we had, a little while back about the Belgians and the book Brew Like a Monk in particular. I learned a ton from that book, even at this stage of my brewing and knowledge of the world. And I didn't really realize it just simply because it wasn't a thought that I had. But the Belgians aren't into kegging beer. It's not a thing they do. Now, it happens now from a commercial standpoint because it has to.
Right.
But that is not in their way of doing things. It is pitching a yeast into a bottling conditioning scenario so that they can condition over time. We talked a little bit previously about the romanticism of brewing and beer, and bottle conditioning is very much a romantic part of brewing. It can also lead to a gigantic mess and points of failure and whatnot, but certainly that's part of the game. Everything you do with brewing is a numbers game. So at some point, you're going to hit the peak of brilliance and the trough of nobody's return. It just is what it is, knowing that either of those scenarios, well, I guess maybe one over the other of those scenarios you want to repeat more than the other. So when do you move from bottling to kegging? Should you move from bottling into kegging? Well, first and foremost, it's when your budget allows, because kegging isn't necessarily the cheapest thing to get into. Kegs themselves, of course, carry a cost. This has come actually into quite a lot of discussion with us at the shop in the past, 4 or 5 months, because I've mentioned several times, but our wonderful friends at Kegland, distributed through for us Brewmaster and for the nation at large, More Beer, has what we'll call a new option for kegging in using an amber PET keg that allows you to have a plastic keg rather than the old Cornelius kegs that are stainless and retired Pepsi and Coke kegs and all the things you know. So the advantages that we have now are that we can get these plastic kegs in that are in various sizes. They are offered in 1 gallon sizes. They are offered in 2.2 gallon, actually 8-liter sizes. And then they are also offered in a 5 gallon size. Actually, I think it's more like a 5.25 gallon size. So very convenient for any setup that you have, whether it's a standard refrigerator, whether it's a mini fridge, or whether you want to use a kegerator or a keezer in their more traditional sense. These things, instead of being, $100 or $120 or even $90, the 5 gallon version we sell at $55. The 2 gallon version we sell at $32, I do believe. The 1 gallon I'd have to get the price on, but obviously it's even less. The amount of ability that you have as a home brewer to use these plastic kegs in various sizes is absolutely unmatched. They work great. We have breweries that use them in a commercial sense for dispensing. We have coffee shops that use them for nitrogenated coffee. They are brilliant and very, very cost effective. So, Brian, for you, talking about if you were to continue a 1 gallon brewing size of beer, we now have the 1 gallon PET kegs where you can go directly to a draft system and not bottle at all and have the keg just fit right on your refrigerator shelf. You can use something as simple as one of the little keg charger things that takes the paintball gun style CO2 cartridges and a little picnic faucet, and you've got a 1 gallon dispensing system for, gosh, I don't know, $60 maybe. Going up into the 5 gallon size, again, the more common standard bearer measure, you've got to think about a CO2 tank, most commonly a 5-pound CO2 tank and fill of that CO2. You need the lines, regulator, and the different manifolds and whatnot to split off to as many kegs as you need. That carries some costs. But there's just no way around it.
If I remember correctly, when the large soda manufacturers, they would, send out their syrups in the large Corny kegs, basically, is what it was. You
Yeah.
could get those fairly cheap after they moved to the bag systems.
Yep.
They're a lot harder to get nowadays. So
Yeah.
then I saw, like you said, the whole PET, and I'm thinking, for me, maybe I'm a purist. I have a hard time like using plastic for stuff like that. I just, in my mind, I'm just like, is it going to impart flavors that are not going to be great? You know, how's it going to affect my beer? So those are the things that I think about as a purist when it comes to brewing. You know, I'm like, I want stainless steel, I want glass. I mean, I want everything that's I can clean. I know it's not ever going to take on any sort of, you know, strange flavor necessarily, or aroma or whatnot. So those are the things that I think of, you know, from an inexperienced homebrewer standpoint.
Yeah. So that, I mean, it's a valid thought and it's things we tackle all the time. Here's what I will tell you, and this is going to be a little bit of a sarcastic dig if you can prepare yourself.
You sarcastic? Come on.
Yeah. If you think a 40-year-old Pepsi keg with syrup in the bottom of it for 40 years isn't going to impart some flavor on your beer, you are crazy. It doesn't happen overnight. That thing has to be cleaned like crazy.
Come on, PBW, Star San, it cleans everything.
Yeah.
Everything's sorted out with those things.
Yeah, tell that to my absolutely amazing American Light Lager that I previously had a freaking coffee beer in, and now everything tastes like coffee.
Oh no.
Yeah, that was the letdown of all letdowns. Listen, I am a strickler on cleanliness, but there's just some things, some aromas, some they dig in some way or the other. So in my experience, and I guess I'm opening myself up for some criticism from your community, but in my opinion, I have noticed zero difference in the plastic versus stainless steel, or even glass bottles.
Okay.
Glass bottles is probably the cleanest way to have your beer because there's just a smaller area for things to go wrong, and beer bottle number one could be a little different from beer bottle number two. But again, the question that you had is, when do you make this move? Let your budget and space be your guide. There is the absolute potential of bottling and filling growlers from your keg. But the carbonation just never holds the same. I mean, if you've ever gotten a growler from a brewery and brought it home, this is the case. It's just undeniable. You just have to go with the system that works best with you. And that's the biggest cop-out answer I could possibly give. But try to do what makes the most sense for the space you have and for the budget that you can put forward. And if that means at some point you get a small kegerator and you're both kegging and bottling, amazing.
If you have a question that you'd like answered, reach out to me at 5beerplan@frontier.com and put Ask the Expert in the subject line. Also, if you are ever in need of homebrew supplies with great customer service, expert answers, and high-quality supplies, please check out Buckeye Brewcraft. You can find them on the web at buckeyebrewcraft.com, and tell them that you heard about them on the podcast. Now, it's time for Barstool Banter. In this episode, I finish up my conversation with Gary and Josh from Chubby Mermaid Brewing in Bonita Springs, Florida. The tap room started heating up during our chat, but not before we talked about recipe formulation, what it was like having a kitchen at the brewery, and what beers they like stylistically for their personal consumption. Do you both collaborate then on your recipes?
No, so like Josh was saying earlier, we try to keep a range of beers, but also hit some of the popular styles like the hazies and the IPAs, and we like to have dark beers on too. We have our own recipes that we have brewed over the years. Him and I have reiterated, and we brought them to our R&D side. We have a folder, we call it R&D, and then we just look at the recipes and together, and we say, look, this is what I was using years ago, but I've changed my mind on some of this stuff. Let's tweak this or tweak that, and then we fire off the recipe and we brew it. Sometimes if we're a little iffy on it, we'll actually only do 2.1 barrel in case it's a dumper. We haven't had to dump one yet. We may have to dump one soon.
Knock wood.
Seeing how it does. Yeah.
We kind of each have our respective areas of expertise too. So we both have extensive recipe lists, as Gary was saying. And like when it comes to the New Englands or sours or gluten-frees, so far, it's like that's kind of Gary's area. And in terms of recipe formation, I kind of he does his thing. And I mean, we're both capable brewers, so I can brew the recipes. You're following a recipe, and he can do the same with mine. And so, I've got recipes that like you were saying, Gary, that, that are tried and true. And we have our little niche areas. that we both bring to the table, and we both trust each other as competent brewers and recipe formulators or wizards, if you want to call it that, where we just trust the other person. Yep, I'm sure you got this handled and this will be good. Yeah. But we will consult each other like, hey, I'm thinking of tweaking this or that. And that's where we kind of collaborate.
Well, what kind of advice, since you both came from the homebrewing community, would you give to someone like me who's only a couple of years into homebrewing? What kind of advice would you give somebody just starting out?
I would say that, keep home brewing for a while, hone your craft, hone it well. I've seen over the years, and Josh could probably attest to it, and I've lived all over, different parts of the country. I've been to a lot of different breweries in different areas, and I see people that get into the brewing scene early on. They don't have the depth of knowledge, and the beers, they show that. I hate to say it, but there are some that are like that out there, and typically it's people who haven't put the work in early on, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I feel like 10 years at least, and really taking it seriously, brewing and reiterating and changing one thing and see how it does and learn what that one thing does to the beer. That takes time.
Mm-hmm.
Kudos to you for doing 1.5 gallons or 2 gallons at a time. I was doing 5 gallons at a time. All right, it took me 20 years to reiterate all these recipes. But maybe I should have done it your way. I could have got through it quicker.
Well, it was a kit that my wife had got me back in 2020 from Northern Brewer. It was an all-in-one, and I drugged my feet for 2 years before I finally took the plunge. It's a lot of fun. It really is. And frankly, when I started out, I thought, you know what? There's enough good beer out there that I don't want to be stuck with 5 gallons of mediocre beer that I brewed up. So I figure, if I do a gallon and a half, then that gives me at least 10 to 12 bottles that I can share and enjoy and maybe enter a homebrew contest or two. So that's why I stay small at the moment. Although my parents did buy me a 7-gallon SS Brewtech conical fermenter for Christmas, so I may have to do something different in the future. But I'm dragging my feet on that as well.
See, this is what happens, right? Once people know that you're into beer brewing, it's like all of a sudden they know what to buy you for birthdays and Christmas.
Yeah, exactly.
I had to move upstairs. It was getting busy on the floor.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all.
Again, I really like the way that your tap room is laid out. And as I said, I was able to sit and enjoy my beer while looking at your equipment there. How large a space do you actually have there in the tap room? How many can you seat?
There are 50 chairs for butts downstairs, and there are 23 seats upstairs. Everything else would be standing room only at that point.
Okay.
We have a maximum capacity, according to the fire marshal, of I think 113. We don't have anywhere near that in seats. I think I just said what was that? 73 seats. Anything more than that, and it would be just too tight. I mean, we already have probably one extra chair too many at either one of the bars, the side bar and the main bar. But in any case, yeah, we've got 73 seats, including the couches and tables upstairs.
We will probably have outdoor seating set up next season. It's a very complicated, long process with the city. That one is probably the thorn in our side at the moment, but eventually that'll get hopefully approved, and then we can have some outdoor seating.
So is that just because of the fact that you have alcohol outside of the building and you've got to keep that contained inside a certain area?
There's probably all of that in the process. Yeah, it's more or less the way the city does the outdoor seating is that you have to, of course, there's a fee. It's not a small fee. It's a pretty sizable fee for that application. And then it actually has to sit for 6 months for people to appeal it, because you have to go in front of the city council and plead your case why you need outdoor seating.
That's insane.
Yeah, well,
that's government for you, I guess.
So anyway, that's why we don't have outdoor seating yet, because it's a 6-month process, and we opened in October, and I'm like, well, by the time we get our permit, approved, it would be now, which is
Right.
now too warm.
Yeah, that makes sense. How many beers do you have on tap there at Chubby Mermaid?
Well, we have the ability to have 20.
Okay.
16 would be on the main cooler, with 4 being on the Keezer. That's supposed to be our small batch freezer with 4 taps on it. I think we're done small batching barley-based beers for the most part. So that's going to be our dedicated gluten-free Keezer. As I mentioned before, we may be having 4 gluten-free beers on tap fairly soon. So that'll be dedicated 100% at some point for gluten-free. But then, yeah, we'll have 16 taps on the main cooler. At the moment, I think we're probably sitting around 11 or 12.
Enough to keep you busy at the moment, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other thing with the gluten free. Once we have 4 options, when you only have one option, it puts a lot of pressure on 10 gallons of beer,
Right.
But when you have 4 options, that's different. That should last a lot longer.
With only you said a 4-barrel system, so how many days a week are you brewing there?
We can brew probably on average once a week. We usually brew probably on average brew in half. So it would be 3 beers every 2 weeks.
All right. Well, when I was looking for a brewery on the map, I happened to notice that there is a coffee roastery near you. Have you thought about doing any kind of collaboration with them, like a coffee blonde or a coffee stout?
We already did.
Okay.
Yeah, we first one we did, so Coffee Blonde, the brewery down the street, Riptide Brewing, they did theirs, the Grumpy Blonde, and Grumpy Goat roastery, and they did a blonde with them. So we did ours was the Chubby Goat. We didn't want to do Grumpy Mermaid or something like that for our first one. But yeah, so it was a Scottish style wee heavy with Vietnamese medium roast. And that one went over extremely well during construction, pre-opening. That we did it small batch, just for us, and then we did it full scale 2-barrel shortly after we opened, and it sold well. And then more recently, I did a oatmeal breakfast stout, and we siphoned off 10 gallons for playing with our food, as I alluded to earlier, so I could experiment with some dark roast, and that was a little too heavy. It was a Sumatran dark roast, and it needs about a week or more to really die down. Otherwise, it's just pure Java.
Okay.
So yeah, we've done it a couple of times. Plan to continue that relationship. He's 200 yards away from our front door, so that's an easy one for us.
Right. That's what I mean. I kind of figured that was the case, but sometimes you just never know. I mean, you've only been doing this 6 months, and there are a lot of other things to focus on.
Yeah.
So do you have like a core rotation of beers on tap, or do you constantly change them?
A little of both. Some house beers are sort of, rising to the surface. And then for instance, like let's say we have our pseudo pills on, and then we know it's going to run out. We may brew like a German pills or New Zealand pills, and then we'll come back around to the other pills. So we try to keep, if the light beer goes down, we try to put a light beer back up. But it may not be the same beer, so that gives our customers something new to try. Keeps them interested, but then you get the people that come in and say, "Well, do you have anything like Bud Light?" And well, we got a Pilsner. You can try that.
You keep like a rotation of a particular style is kind of what you're going at then?
So like right now we have 2 light beers on. We have the Supernova, which is a cream ale, absolutely delicious, by the way. And we have our pseudo pills. So let's say the cream ale goes down. Even though it's popular, we may put a Helles up next time or a Kolsch in its place. But then Supernova will come back again. I don't want to put the same beer up every time. So every time you come, it's the same beer. It's like, oh, maybe I want to try something new. And you try something new for a while, and you're like, hey, man, can you bring back, Supernova, Black Betty, whatever? And it's coming back. But so you don't wear. It's just that same thought process we had about social media. It's like, don't bombard social media. You just get fatigued. That's like one post after the other. The same thing with beer. Don't just keep putting the same beer on. It's like people come in and go, "Oh, I had that beer last year." Anything new?
Right. Well, I look back at my my untapped check-ins, and when I was there, I had the Violet Sunshine, which is a golden ale. I had the Bird of Prey, which is a sour. The Coral Reef Wit, which is of course a wit beer, which was amazing. Cherry Wheat, and then the Dark Helmet Schwartz beer. So, I got to taste different styles from your brewery, and they were all really solid beers.
Thank
So,
you.
so good job. You guys are doing a great job there with the beer. When you went into this, did you have in mind that you wanted to have food at the brewery?
Yes. Not to this scale. I was actually going to open at about half the size. And we were just going to do like real simple stuff like a sandwich table, an panini press, something like that. And maybe get a turbo chef and throw in, like hot stickers or something. I don't know. It was going to be minimal. But when we opened this, it was bigger. We increased the size of the kitchen a little bit. And I'm glad we did. It's a pain, yet it brings in people. And it brings in people. We open up, we're the brewery that opens up before most of the other breweries in Bonita. So it works out because we're the only one that actually has food. Other than, some of them have food trucks, but you can't get a food truck 11 a.m. on a Tuesday. So people come in, they power up here with food, they get their first beer, and then they head off to the other breweries, and now they're fed for the day until dinner. So we get almost that de facto first brewery of the day because of the food, and we're open.
Yeah. I think it's important in this day and age for the craft brewery to have food and activities and good beer. I mean, you have to really have those things to keep drawing people in, not just your regulars, but new people that come to the area. As I mentioned, we just happen to be wintering over for a month in Naples, doing some exploration like I always do. Inevitably, what'll happen is we're out and about, and it's like, I'm hungry. Are you hungry? Yeah, let's see if we can find a brewery with food. And that's where we end up landing, for either the first or second brewery of the day for that very reason. So, it was late enough in the day when we arrived that we didn't have any of the food. I saw the menu, looked like you had some really good stuff on. Will that be something that stays consistent, or will you change that kind of seasonally?
Yeah, we're working on lunch menu offerings, and like I was saying earlier, affordable, easy,
Right.
quick. It's food that we offer it, until it's gone. So it's a weekly special. It's like, okay, we're offering it until it's gone, and then next week we're going to rotate into something else.
Got it. So were there any unforeseen consequences, side effects of having food in the brewery that you weren't expecting?
The approval process. The approval process was very busy with all the inspections and lining up people, because when you have a hood inspection, you got to try to herd cats with this. You got to get, the fire department together and the electrician and the hood guy, and they all have to be at the same time, and they have that. I mean, that's part about being your own GM, really. That's what we were. That became a challenge.
Okay.
That slowed us down a little bit near the end too.
What other kind of activities do you have at the brewery?
We have, we can do the bag toss. We have that out there. Sorry, I got to start cooking here. Getting busy.
Speaking of the food.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I was separate from Josh, so we wouldn't get the echo, but now we're getting the echo.
It'll be fine.
Okay.
Yep. No worries. I appreciate the flexibility. As far as beer releases that are coming up, do you have anything that's like new and exciting that you're really looking forward to this summer or looking ahead to fall?
Barrel aged stuff. So
Okay.
kind of a vanity project for both of us, but yeah, we got some barrel aged stuff that we're going to do.
Ah, very cool. For each of you, what is your favorite style of beer?
Daily drinker IPA for me, and fun drinker like barley wine.
How about for you, Gary?
And probably sours, but they don't like me. And then after that, it's probably hazies.
You said they don't like you?
Yeah, I get really bad acid reflux.
Oh. Okay. Well, I have to admit, I know that if I'm going off on a pub crawler, exploring a new area, I also have to preload with a bunch of Tums just in case, because I just, it sucks getting old.
Yep, that is it. I say that often. It sucks getting old.
Yeah. With experience comes wisdom, hopefully. So, Well, listen, we're getting close to the end here, and I know you guys are getting kind of busy with things there at the brewery. So I always ask one last fun question. If you were a beer, what style would you be and why? And we'll start with you, Josh.
Oh, jeez. I don't even know how to answer the question, to be honest. Honestly, I don't think I've ever thought about that question.
Okay. Gary, do you have a better answer
Year.
than Josh?
No, I don't think so. I don't know. Maybe an Allagash Curio or something.
Okay.
Probably my favorite beer style. So
That's definitely something. So I'll take that as an answer. Well, gents, again, I really appreciate your time, especially since I know things are busy there. I hope we can get down that way again and enjoy another beer there at Chubby Mermaid. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. And again, appreciate you being on the show.
all right, thank you so much. Sorry I got busy on us.
No worries. Hey, thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.
Okay, thank you.
Last call.
It's nearly time to wrap things up. But first, one more for the road. This episode, I'm not just blowing smoke, but drinking Echt Schlenkerla Eika Doppelbock from Schlenkerla Hellerbrau Trum out of Bamberg, Germany. And apologies for butchering that name. From the brewer. Following century-old recipes, all malts made at Schlenkerla Brewery are dried by wood fire. While for the classic Echt Schlenkerla Rauch beer, traditionally beech has been and still is used the While for the classic Echt Schlenkerla Rauch beer, traditional beech has been and still is used, the malt for Schlenkerla oak smoke is kilned with oak wood. The resulting oak smoke malt has a smoother and more multi-layered smoky note than the intensely aromatic beech smoke malt. The hence complex smokiness in Schlenkerla oak smoke is paired with the multifaceted bitterness of finest Hallertau aroma hops. With 8% alcohol and amber color, it matures for months in the deep brewery cellars underneath Bamberg into a special treat for smoke beer lovers for Christmas. Without further delay, so this is an 8% ABV Doppelbock. It has a moderate bitterness of 40 IBU. My wife purchased this for me as a gift, and I'm excited to try this. So this beer poured a nice amber color. It's clear and clean. A great looking beer. There was only just a small amount of head that built up when I poured this out from the bottle. So on the nose, wow. They were not kidding. This oak smoke is super complex and super powerful. It's really intriguing. I wish that you could really smell this. It's fascinating, to be honest with you. And interestingly enough, it does seem like it's multi-layered. It's not just one kind of smoky note. I don't know, it's just very interesting. So, first sip impression. Wow. So, that smoke from the malt immediately just coats your mouth. It does have a nice bitterness to it. I do get notes of a little bit of maltiness. So as my palate becomes a little bit more attuned to what's happening here, there is, as I mentioned, a mild bitterness that comes through, and it leaves you with a little bit of a mouth coating as well at the end. So I've told you all that I smoke and I grill, and sometimes that smokiness that comes from smoking a good piece of meat and eating it after the fact, it just sometimes leaves that kind of residue on your palate. And that's kind of what I'm feeling here. It's not a bad thing, but I'm telling you right now, I really wish that I had some smoked meat to go with this, because that would be an amazing pair with this particular beer. There's a little bit of a citrusy kind of hop bite in there, but really that smoked malt just takes over and really overpowers the palate. I know that not everybody is a fan of a smoked beer, of a Rausch beer, but this is something slightly above that. I feel like it's maybe a little bit more complex than that of a traditional Rausch beer. It's very smooth. There's maybe a little bit of caramel sweetness somewhere in there too. It's one of those beers that if you've never had a smoked beer before, you probably won't like it because it's just so out there. But I think for anybody that enjoys a good smoked meat, I think you'd really enjoy this beer. I'm fairly certain that if you found yourself a higher end bottle shop, that this would be a beer that you could certainly find because it is imported from Bamberg, Germany. Overall, I would give this one a very strong 3.5 tasters out of 5 on the flight board. If I had a piece of brisket with me, I'd probably give it a 4.5. Prost, Schlenkerla, and cheers. I'm always looking for new craft beverages to review. So if you've got one from your favorite local craft brewery, meadery, or cidery you'd like me to drink and describe, reach out and let me know. That's all for this episode of the 5 Beer Plan. With so many podcasts out there, thanks for choosing to listen to mine. Join me next time as I find another yeast to dig into, carry out the next step in the homebrew project, visit Arcadia, Florida for another interesting interview, and review my new summer crush. Remember to hit the subscribe button on your preferred podcast platform to be notified of new episodes. Follow me on Instagram as well, 5 Beer Plan 2022, to see what is happening on my personal ale trail. I'd love to hear from you, and there are several ways you may do so. Leave a comment for this episode on Spotify, direct message me on Instagram, or email me directly, 5beerplan@frontier.com. Be sure to support your local breweries, choose your beers wisely, and drink them responsibly. Until next time, keep walking your ale trail, and stay thirsty, my friends.